What creates a 72-hour countdown to the total collapse of modern civilization sits silently in the corner of every warehouse on Earth and is currently the subject of a secret century-long war that dictates the size of your groceries. This is Critical Path, where we explore stories and innovations about our global supply chain that connect our world to your everyday life. Today, we are looking at the floor. Literally. We are talking about the humble, splintery, often ignored wooden pallet. Now, I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, come on, it is just a bunch of wood nailed together. How exciting can it be? Well, buckle up, because if all 5 billion of these wooden platforms suddenly disappeared today, the global economy would crash faster than a website on Black Friday. We are talking about empty grocery shelves, hospitals running out of medicine, and factories grinding to a halt, all within 3 days. It is the invisible foundation of our entire lives, and it is time we gave it the credit and the scrutiny it deserves. Let's start with the sheer scale of this thing. It is estimated that there are 5 billion pallets in circulation right now. That is 5 billion heavy, wooden sleds moving 90% of all physical goods on the planet. If you bought it, ate it, or are currently wearing it, chances are it spent a good portion of its life sitting on a pallet. This simple object is the literal backbone of global trade. But here is the kicker. Despite being everywhere, it is the most overlooked piece of equipment in the supply chain. We treat them like firewood, but without them, the velocity of our supply chain would drop by over 90%. To understand why, we have to travel back in time. Not too far, just back to the days of break bulk shipping. Before the pallet took over, moving goods was a logistical nightmare. Imagine a ship arriving at a dock. It is filled with thousands of sacks, crates, and barrels, all different sizes. Longshoremen had to pick up each item individually, carry it, and stack it. It was backbreaking, slow, and expensive. Let's look at the math, because the numbers are staggering. If you have a freight shipment of 13,000 cases of soup, and you try to unload that by hand, it would take a crew about 3 days of intense manual labor. 3 days! Now take those same 13,000 cases, stack them on pallets, and use a forklift. The time drops to just 4 hours. That is the difference between the modern world and the Dark Ages. That efficiency is the only reason we can have just-in-time delivery, where fresh avocados show up in snowy climates and your online order arrives the next day. But the pallet, as we know, it didn't just appear out of thin air. It has a surprisingly high-tech origin story. While ancient Egyptians used wooden skids, basically sleds without wheels, to move stones for the pyramids, the real revolution had to wait for the machine that would become the pallet's best friend, the forklift. Around 1915, the first primitive forklifts appeared. They could lift stuff, which was great, but the old-school skids were wobbly. You couldn't stack them on top of each other without crushing the stuff on the bottom skid. It was a geometry problem. The aha moment came in the late 1930s. A genius efficiency engineer named George Raymond Sr. and his buddy William House looked at the skid and thought, what if we put a bottom on it? It sounds simple, right? Like putting wheels on a suitcase. But by adding a bottom deck to the skid, they created the double-faced wooden pallet. This meant the weight of a load was distributed evenly. You could stack pallets on top of pallets, floor to ceiling, without turning your merchandise into a pancake. On November 7, 1939, they got the patent. And here is where George Raymond becomes the unsung hero of capitalism. Instead of hoarding the design and charging royalties, he donated the patent to the public. He basically said, here you go world, use it. This act of strategic philanthropy meant that when the United States entered World War II, the technology for high-speed logistics was already free and available for everyone to use. And speaking of World War II, this is where the pallet truly earned its stripes. We usually talk about the war in terms of tanks and planes, but the Allied victory was actually a victory of logistics. In the early years of the war, the Allies had a massive problem. They could build supplies, but they couldn't move them fast enough. Hand-loading ships was too slow for mechanized warfare. Supplies were piling up on the docks, just sitting there, vulnerable to enemy bombers. The US Navy made a critical pivot. They adopted the unit load concept. They standardized on a 48 by 40-inch wooden pallet. Suddenly, they weren't moving 1,000 cans of Spam, they were moving one giant block of Spam. They also added a brilliant little tweak called the four-way entry. They cut notches in the side supports, the stringers, so a forklift could slide in from any of the 4 sides. This was crucial in the cramped hold of a ship where you didn't have room to turn around. By the time the war ended in 1945, the US military had left millions of these pallets at bases all over the world. In Australia, this surplus of military junk actually birthed an empire. The Americans left so many pallets behind that the Australian government set up the Commonwealth Handling Equipment Pool, or CHEPA. If you have ever seen a blue pallet behind a supermarket, that is them. They are the descendants of that World War II surplus, and they are now the biggest pallet company in the world. But peace didn't bring harmony to the world of pallets. Oh no, it brought the Great Pallet Standardization War. And this war is still going on today. See, as the global economy expanded, different regions developed their own ideas about how big a pallet should be. And this, my friends, is why we can't have nice things. It created a massive divergence between North America and Europe that cost billions of dollars in what experts call translation costs. In the blue corner, representing North America, we have the GMA standard, the Grocery Manufacturers Association. The people who make your cereal and soda got tired of the chaos and settled on the 48 by 40 inch pallet. Why 40 inches wide? Because it fits perfectly too wide inside a standard American truck trailer. It was designed for the highway. In the red corner, representing Europe, we have the Euro pallet. Europe didn't care as much about trucks, they cared about trains. The Union Internationale des Chemins de Fer, the railway folks, designed a pallet that measured 1200 by 800 millimeters. That is about 47.2 by 31.5 inches. It is narrower than the American version because European railcars and historical warehouse doors were smaller. So here is the problem. You are an American company shipping widgets to Germany. You load your 48 by 40 inch pallets into a container. They arrive in Hamburg. The German warehouse manager looks at them and shakes his head. Your pallets are too wide for his automated racks. They don't fit his forklifts. So what happens? You have to repalletize. This is a fancy word for reese, paying people to move boxes from one piece of wood to another piece of wood. It is slow, it is expensive, and you risk breaking the product. It creates a friction in global trade that no amount of diplomacy can fix. It is a geometry war. And it gets even more complicated. The International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, recognizes 6 different pallet footprints. You have the American standard, the Euro standard, and then you have a square 1100 by 1100 mm pallet that is standard in Japan and South Korea. And then you have the Australian standard, which is 1165 by 1165 mm. Why? Because it fits perfectly into the race containers used on Australian railways. It is a perfect square, super efficient for Australia, but a headache for everyone else. This lack of standardization is a huge barrier for efficiency. When a standard American pallet goes into a standard ocean shipping container, it doesn't fit perfectly. There is wasted space. We are shipping air across the ocean because our boxes don't fit our boats. Now, let's talk about what these things are actually made of. You might think, it is the 21st century, surely we have moved on to space-age carbon fiber pallets? Nope, we are still using dead trees. Wood accounts for approximately 90% of the pallet market. This makes the pallet industry a massive player in the environmental game. In the United States alone, pallet production consumes about 50% of the total annual hardwood harvest. Half of all the hardwood harvested goes into making these platforms. That is a lot of oak and hickory. But wood has enemies, specifically bugs. Invasive species like the Asian longhorned beetle or the emerald ash borer love to hitch a ride inside the timber of a pallet. If they land in a new forest that has no natural predators, they can wipe out entire ecosystems. This is a biosecurity nightmare. To fight this, we have ISPM 15. It sounds like a secret agent code, but it stands for International Standards for Phytosanitary Measures No. 15. It is a global rule that says, all wooden pallets crossing international borders must be heat-treated. They have to be baked to kill the bugs. If you see a little stamp on a pallet that looks like a wheat stalk, that means it has been cooked and is safe for travel. If you try to ship a non-stamped pallet to Europe, they will reject your entire shipment at the port. You will be stuck with a container of rotting bananas and a massive fine, all because you didn't bake your wood. Of course, there are alternatives. Plastic pallets are gaining ground. They are durable, they last for 10 to 15 years, and you can wash them, which is great for hygiene. Plus, bugs can't eat plastic. But they are expensive, like 5 times the cost of wood, and if they crack, you can't just nail a new board on, you have to melt the whole thing down. Then you have metal pallets, which are the tanks of the industry. They are fire resistant and can hold massive loads, but they are heavy and cost a fortune to ship. And let's not forget cardboard pallets, which are great for air freight because they are light, but if they get wet, they turn into mush. So for now, wood remains the king. Now let's get into the business side of things, because this is where the war turns into a battle over money and ownership. There are two ways to handle pallets. You either own them, or you rent them. The ownership model is called the white wood market. This is the Wild West. You buy a pallet made of cheap, untreated wood. You put your product on it, ship it to a customer, and you never see it again. It is a one-way trip. It is cheap up front, but it creates a lot of waste and inconsistent quality. Then you have the pooling model. This is the rental system, pioneered by Shep and their famous blue pallets. In this system, you don't buy the pallet, you rent it. CHEP owns the pallet. They are responsible for fixing it and recycling it. It is a circular economy. It is much more sustainable, reducing waste by 95%, and it guarantees quality. When you are running a high-speed automated warehouse, you can't afford a pallet with a loose nail jamming up your multi-million-dollar conveyor belt. You pay a premium for the consistency of a rental. But pooling has its own problem: leakage. That is the polite industry term for theft. Managing millions of rented assets across thousands of different companies is a nightmare. People steal them, paint over the blue, or turn them into coffee tables for Pinterest projects. It is a billion-dollar problem. If you see a blue pallet, remember, it is not trash, it is someone's property, and they probably want it back. So where is this all going? Is the war ending? Well, the next frontier isn't about size, it is about intelligence. We are moving toward Industry 4.0, and the pallet is getting a brain transplant. We are seeing the rise of the intelligent pallet. Companies are embedding RFID tags, GPS trackers, and IoT sensors directly into the wood or plastic. Suddenly, the pallet isn't just a dumb platform, it is a data carrier. It can tell you where it is in real time. It can tell you if it has been dropped. For the food and pharmaceutical industries, this is a game changer. Imagine a pallet of vaccines that monitors its own temperature. If it gets too warm, it alerts the driver immediately. We are moving from a world where we just hope our stuff arrives, to a world where the pallet tells us exactly how the journey is going. This digital evolution might be the thing that finally bridges the gap between the different standards. If the pallet is smart enough to talk to the warehouse robots, maybe the exact dimensions matter a little less. But for now, the physical reality remains. The Great Pallet Standardization War is a testament to the hidden complexity of our world. We built a global civilization on top of a platform that we can't even agree on how to measure. It is a story of efficiency versus tradition, of global trade versus regional infrastructure. The pallet is the silent partner in every transaction you make. It is the reason you can buy a flat-screen TV for a reasonable price. It is the reason there is food in your supermarket. It is the invisible scaffolding of modern life. So the next time you see a beat-up wooden skid sitting behind a store, show some respect. That is not just firewood, that is a veteran of the logistics war. It is a 50-pound marvel of engineering that is holding the entire world together, one nail at a time. And remember, if they all vanished today, you would have about 72 hours to stock up on canned goods before the system collapses. Now I have a question for you to chew on. Given how much trouble these wooden dimensions cause, do you think the world should force a single, universal pallet size, even if it means tearing up railway tracks and rebuilding warehouses in half the world? Or is the chaos of the pallet war just the price we pay for a diverse global economy? Let us know what you think in the comments below. I read every single one. Thanks for listening and watching. Please like and subscribe, and make sure to check out our other videos about the global supply chain.